An insane amount of people are playing Flesh and Blood recently, and I'm excited, man. I can't believe the amount of increase of player base in Flesh and Blood. It's off the charts. If you thought 2020 was the year of collectability and investing, 2021 is the year of people playing Flesh and Blood, and everyone's playing the game. I can't believe it. It's insane. I've gone to my local game store and I've been to a couple different game stores around where I live, and the amount of people playing these tournaments is insane. There's so many people, 30, 40 people trying to compete in these tournaments. The skirmish event in 2021 is off the chain. I can't tell you how much demand there is for people playing the game. Even in the Discord player group, there's so many people trying to get games. There's about 100 people at one time trying to look for a game. I do not believe the amount of people playing Flesh and Blood now. It is just insanely hyped for people playing the game, getting to compete in the tournaments to get some really good cards. It's a really big thing that's happening early in 2021. And right now it's February, man, and it's really weird. The year started in 2021 in January is more collector investor type thing, but then bam, it hit a big wall, and then now everyone's just saying, "Hey, now that I have these cards, maybe I should play with them." and that's the only explanation I can think of, because in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I'm telling you, man, I've just been in so many different mediums out there for Flesh and Blood, and nobody's talking about collecting or investing. It's not talked about at all. It's talked about, hey, what's the new meta? What's up with this Ira deck that's really big and defensive and pew pew? And then, oh, well, what's up with Rob and him doing Tall Dorinthia and Tower Number Nine's talking about it. Everyone's talking about different metas and strategies. Everyone's just talking about the gameplay, and it's so refreshing, man. And I've said this in the past. I've said so many times, 2020, demonstrating value. Flesh and Blood was demonstrating its value to people. And then 2021, Flesh and Blood is engaging physically with its customers, and people are playing the game of Flesh and Blood and getting into the Flesh and Blood. And I'm so happy to see that, man. I've competed in a tournament recently, to the Deck Edge tournament. It was a lot of fun. I got to play a bunch of people, and that tournament was really hyped. And there's so many people playing. I couldn't believe it. You know, 1 minute the whole server there's nobody in there, and then bam, the next minute there's like 30 people in that server. Everyone's jumping on a game, playing Flesh and Blood, and everyone's having a great time. It's just a great thing to see. And everyone I talk to is saying, "Hey, Bronson, have you seen all these new players of Flesh and Blood? Have you seen all this new activity in the player?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro. It's insane. It's insane how much people have really just not really cared about investing as much, and they just like to play the game." And of course, the investment in collecting world still exists for Flesh and Blood. It always will. But now, move over. It is about playability. People are just playing the game a lot more, man, now. And if in the past, investing and collecting was, 80%, and playing the game was 20%, those numbers have swapped. And now it's like maybe 80% people playing the game and 20% people talking about collecting and investing. It has just made a whole 180, and I'm so excited. I've been playing my Bravo deck, doing some big swings with my Crippling Crush. Hopefully you get a Towering Titan before that Crippling Crush to make it like a 19 attack. And I'm just doing some crazy games out there. I've had a lot of fun playing games. I played a lot of games with AJ from Adventure Code Gaming. He's a really cool guy, fellow Floridian. And man, like, I've just had so much fun recently playing Flesh and Blood, and I can see, man, it's coming. People are starting to play, and as more people start getting into this game and playing the game, they're going to increase the amount of players in the game and draw up all that market share that Flesh and Blood needs, man. And I'm here to tell you, like a lot of other channels are telling you too, there is a drastic increase in player base for Flesh and Blood, and this is huge. It's a huge part of the game, and it's a huge thing for the game. This is what they needed, and I'm telling you here that the amount of players has drastically increased for Flesh and Blood, and I'm so happy to see that. And what's insane too is just a spike because it was like humming along like this, and then it just went, it just shot up the amount of players and people out there trying to get involved. And the skirmish event was the big thing. I mean, that was Legend Story Studios saying, hey, we want people to play skirmishes, we want people to play against each other, and here you get some pretty damn good prizes even if you just participate, man. Even if you try your level best, you have the same chances of getting a cold foil as Jacob Peterson or Matt Rogers. You have the same end goal in place. You might not get as much experience points and whatnot, but you might get a card. You have the same level of ability to get those cards because it's all participation based. And that was huge driver, man. And I think a lot of the people, even the investors, like, hey, you mean I can get that really valuable card if I just try to play the game? Okay, let me look at my collection. And then they got their collection, they put a deck together, and then they started playing. So I really think it was a smart play by Legend Story Studios, and I've just seen so many people get into this game from local game stores in my area in Florida. Walking in, it is just a madhouse in there. People wanting the Flesh and Blood, along with the online realm, like going into a tabletop simulator and seeing all these servers up there, man. It's insane. So what I'm here to tell you is that, man, to sum up this whole thing, in the last couple weeks, Flesh and Blood has seen an insane amount of player base increase, and I'm so happy to see it for the game. It's what it's really needed. I'm here to tell you that. All right, part one of the video is done. Oh, geez, that was tough. All right, so this video is not about player base increase at all. This video is about marketing and the general way people talk on the interwebs and discussion boards, and it's all about player perception, people's perceptions, man. That's what this video is truly about. This is part two of the video. So just to put it out there, and disclaimer, everything I just said prior to this point in the video has been a complete lie. I have not seen a dramatic increased spike in player base. I have seen more people play. It's been slight, but people are playing, but not to the degree I just talked about. And you might say, Bronson, you're a dick. Why did you just do that? Why'd you play me, bro? And I'll tell you this: I'm not playing you. This is just a little thing I wanted to bring to your attention. This is going to explain my part two of this. Is perception is everything in life. What you perceive in your brain is what you believe to be true. And if you are showered with thoughts and opinions of people saying, "Oh, Flesh and Blood is investment, Flesh and Blood is collecting, blah blah blah," if you hear that 20 different times from 20 different people, you're gonna think that Flesh and Blood is about investing and collecting. You're not gonna think people are playing the game. But if more people like myself or other people in these realms talk about player base increasing and more people playing the game and the game getting bigger, your perception is going to shift to that realm. You are not going to think as much about investing and collecting. And it's not me, man. I'm definitely not the person who's going to move the market in any such way. I'm definitely not going to do that in this realm. I don't have as much clout in the community at this time, but I do want to tell you that there are different platforms that do have a little bit more clout, but it's not about any one particular program, and it's about a bunch of different ones. It's about a bunch of them getting together and saying it all at the same time. And if you see like 20 or 30 different people in a community talk about the same freaking thing, it's gonna catch on like wildfire, and it's going to be the perception that people have. And not all the time is this marketing or this verbiage just a virus in some way. It really just stems from actuality. I mean, when a Crucible War box goes from $500 to $1,000, people are gonna think that people are focused on that. When Welcome to Wrath booster boxes spike to 2,000 to some god knows how much price, people are gonna focus on that. And that's going to give credence to a lot of people on the interwebs via, YouTube or public forum or what have you, it's going to give credence to what their speech is. If I say people only care about collecting investing and it's because of that, and that, you're going to be like, well, he has a point. And now if I say, you know, I think the player base is increasing because of all these things, I just did the same thing. And you might say, well, Bronson, their thing is based on fact and yours is based on opinion. Well, it's like, how good are their opinions? When you see a booster box increase in price, does that really tell you what all the population of the flesh and blood community is doing? No, it doesn't tell you anything whatsoever. And what you need to remember is that people are bullshitting you constantly. They're just telling you what they see. They're just telling you what's in front of their eyeballs. But just because they're only looking at this money and all this stuff doesn't mean that everyone's looking at the money. And if everyone who's being part of the whole mass, the big groups of flesh and blood community, if they're all talking about collectability investing, everyone's going to talk about collecting investing. It's going to be more of the thing that's perceived in your mind. So I don't really know if there's a takeaway to this. I don't. I definitely am doing this in the beginning, the part one, just to emphasize this point that if you believe me for even a fraction of a second, like, oh wow, well, maybe people are playing the game. Maybe things are shifting. Then you realize that I definitely had some sort of influence on what your thought processes were about the game. And if you had multiple different people like myself talk about player base increase insane in February 2021, you would also think that way. You would be like, "Oh, okay, well maybe I would have won you over. Maybe you would have perceived something different about Flesh and Blood." Than if I just made a run of the mill video about how collectability is the best thing in the world and Flesh and Blood is, going to the moon, diamond hands forever. So I think that with this kind of thing, I don't know what to think. It's weird too because in the media that you have in your daily life, let's not just talk about Flesh and Blood, man. Let's talk about what you see on your television screen, what you see in your newspaper, when you see whatever thing. Are those things marketed? Are they targeted in some way? Are the reason behind the article to make you think a certain way instead of thinking another way? And you really have to think about that and back up for a second and think and just do a review in your head. Don't even read the article. Just say, okay, this is the article. What is it trying to make me think? And then once you form that idea in your mind, and then you read through the article, then you can really have an open mind and say, well, they did say this, but this article is definitely geared for me to wanting to buy X, Y, or Z or make this decision in my life. So it's tough, man, when you see different types of marketing, different types of medium. Is there a hidden intention behind things? I've really thought about that recently. And obviously the people in the flesh and blood community, I don't think anyone's trying to make sway public opinion any which way. It's not like that at all, but what more of it is the people who are spreading information, the people like myself, the bigger people in the flesh and blood TCG community, you know, they are subject to this shit too. They are taking in different mediums that they read on, the Reddits or the anything, the Discords and all that stuff, and they're taking those perceptions and that might influence them. It's like a clusterfuck of opinions that just get mashed up, and the loudest voices have the biggest chance of stirring that pot of opinions and influencing different things. And the influencing nature is very interesting of that stuff. And who knows, maybe maybe somebody listens to the first 4 minutes of this video and they take away like, wow, Flesh and Blood playability is huge. More people are playing the game. This is awesome. And it makes them interested and think, oh, wow, this is awesome. This game is gaining traction in this realm. That is their takeaway. Because I geared it towards that, man. I geared it towards trying to pump that side of the game, even though I was lying. But in a sense, if you think about it, just to clarify, I didn't mean to be a dick. I didn't mean to pull anything over. That was just to prove the part two's point of things that people say on the internet do influence other people. And the more times that all these people, constantly say like, "Hey, like this is the way," the more other people are going to follow that way. So if tons of people in the Flesh and Blood TCG community say, "Hey, this game is getting hyped. I'm seeing so many people playing the game. This is amazing," instead of, "Wow, everyone is just a collector or investor," that is what is going to really change the whole perception of everyone in the game. And not only everyone in the game, but everyone in the perimeter of the game who's thinking of getting into the game. And I know that this opinion and these perceptions are going to shift. It's been a long time coming. This is a new TCG. Flesh and Blood is still an infant, man. It's definitely built the bedrock of collectability. But as time moves on, as more people get into this game, the playability is going to be huge, and there's going to be more people like Kriparian and Hearthstone. Some big streamers who are really good at the game. Like Rob from Tolarian Dropouts. I think he's definitely a runner for that. That type of thing where someone is just really good at the game, and people really care about the competitive nature of the game and just getting better and just playing. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be 2021. I think that everything that I've seen, and this is just a minor prediction, is that there is going to be a big shift of playability is going to be big. And I've had this opinion for a while. You can look at my previous shit. I've said that 2020 was Flesh and Blood demonstrating their value as a competitive game. And then not only competitive but collectability. Like it's all about demonstrating value to the players and collectors in 2020. And then 2021 is going to be more about, engaging physically, getting people all together and getting more people into the game, increasing their market share. And that's just my perception of the game. And it's funny too because there's probably going to be a lot more videos in the future saying that there is a huge increase of player base, blah blah blah. And once one person starts saying it, then two people, then four people, then eight people, and then everyone's starting to say it. And then when everyone keeps saying it and saying we like the game, we like the game, then that's going to really drive more people to play the game. And I think it really has to come from a big shift of we don't really give a shit about the investment and collectability side. We want to focus on playing the game. There's going to be things that drive us away, purposely drive us, and those type of things are going to influence our perceptions and our ideas of why we want to be in Flesh and Blood, but not why we want to be in Flesh and Blood, why everyone else is into Flesh and Blood. There's going to be things that make us think that we are playing this just to play the game, and everyone out there is playing it to play the game. And to give you my honest opinion, the gameplay, and well, my honestly extremely biased opinion is the gameplay in Flesh and Blood's amazing. I've never liked competing in any other game, but I really really like competing in Flesh and Blood. It's just a huge ass chess match. The cards are awesome. New players can, in my mind, easily create decks. I really enjoy playing it. It's just a masterfully built game. And I mean, we're still in pre-release, man. I still don't know the full game since Monarch hasn't come out yet. But what I can tell you so far is it's just a really damn good game, man. It's just so good. Uh, I could go on, but like anything in life, there's growing pains. So in the beginning, we talked about collectability investment in 2020, but as more things happen, as more information and news gets released out there in Flesh and Blood, we're gonna see different things that will shift our perception, shift our mental focus into playing the game versus collecting and investing. And it's going to be really fun for me and all of you to just sit back, relax, and watch this shift play out and see all the different people out there change their perceptions. And as this news comes out, people are just going to keep jostling around in them, and all these people are just going to keep shouting that we like playing the game, and there's a big increase in gameplay. So, you've heard it here from me first, and even though this is a complete ass lie for part one, it really does show, in part two, my my really in-depth deep dive in marketing and different influences on people of how things get out into the public and changing your perception. That's the big thing, man, because perception is everything. And so many people for such a long period of time have been under the perception that flesh and blood is just for investing and collecting. But it's going to change. And when it does, it's going to be fun to see how it all plays out. Have a good one, guys. Think for yourselves. Don't be suckered into different thoughts that aren't your own, man. But that's all I have to say. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. Peace.